The smell of fresh coffee filled my kitchen as I scrolled through emails on that Tuesday morning, completely unaware that my phone was about to ring with the most devastating news of my life. When I saw my sister Vivian's name flash across the screen, I almost didn't answer. We'd been distant lately, but something made me pick up. Claire, her voice cracked through the speaker, and I could hear the fluorescent hospital lighting buzzing in the background. What's wrong? Where are you? I'm at Metropolitan General. The doctors, they found something. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. It's cancer, Claire. Stage 3 breast cancer. The coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering against the tile floor as hot liquid splashed everywhere. Vivian was only 28, just 2 years younger than me. This couldn't be happening. The treatment's going to cost everything I have and more, she whispered, and I could hear her crying now. I don't have insurance through my job at the salon, and Medicaid won't cover the specialized treatment I need. Claire, I'm scared I'm going to die. Without hesitation, the words tumbled out of my mouth. Don't worry about money. I'll figure it out. We'll get through this together. That promise, made in a moment of pure love and desperation, would define the next 2 decades of my life. As I hung up and stared at the coffee spreading across my floor like spilled blood, I had no idea I'd just signed up for a journey that would nearly destroy me. Within a week, I was sitting across from Dr. Richardson, Vivian's oncologist, as he laid out a treatment plan that made my head spin. The numbers were staggering: chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, medications that cost more per month than most people's mortgages. Without insurance, we're looking at approximately $300,000 over the next 2 years, he said matter-of-factly, as if he wasn't describing the equivalent of buying a house. I worked as a financial analyst at a mid-sized firm, making decent money but nothing that could absorb this kind of hit. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator, legal pad, and every financial document I owned. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I would liquidate my retirement account, taking the penalty hit. I'd sell my condo and move into a small apartment. I'd take on a second job doing freelance bookkeeping. Whatever it took. Claire, I can't let you do this, Vivian protested when I told her my plan. We were in her tiny apartment, surrounded by get-well cards and prescription bottles. You're my sister. This is what family does. I squeezed her hand, feeling how thin she'd already become. Besides, it's temporary. Once you beat this, you can pay me back gradually. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I promise, Claire. Every penny. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to. The first check I wrote was for $47,000, her initial treatment deposit. As I signed my name, I felt a strange mix of terror and purpose. I was betting everything on love, on family, on the belief that doing right would somehow work out in the end. The next 2 years blurred together in a haze of hospital visits, insurance battles, and mounting bills. I became an expert at navigating medical billing departments, negotiating payment plans, and finding programs that offered discounts for uninsured patients. My second job turned into a third job, and sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Vivian responded well to treatment, thank God. Watching her fight with such grace and determination made every sacrifice feel worthwhile. During her worst days, when the chemo left her too weak to lift her head, she'd whisper, "Thank you for saving my life, Claire. I'll never forget this." But the bills kept coming. Unexpected complications led to additional surgeries. New medications that weren't covered by the assistance programs. Emergency room visits when her white cell count dropped dangerously low. Each crisis meant another few $1,000s I somehow had to find. I should get a second opinion on this bill, I told Vivian one afternoon, waving a statement that claimed she owed $8,000 for a scan. Claire, you're doing too much. You look exhausted. She was right. I'd lost weight, developed stress-induced migraines, and hadn't taken a real vacation in over a year. It's fine. Dr. Richardson says you're responding really well. We're almost through this. By the end of year 2, when Vivian rang the bell signaling the end of her chemotherapy, I was financially devastated but emotionally fulfilled. I'd spent nearly $400,000, every penny of my savings, and taken on debt that would take years to repay. But my sister was alive. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you, she promised at her celebration dinner. Vivian's 5-year remission period should have been a time of recovery for both of us, but life had other plans. Just as she was getting back on her feet, working again and talking about repaying me, her cancer returned with a vengeance. The doctors called it a recurrence, but to me it felt like a death sentence for my financial future. The good news is we caught it early this time, Dr. Richardson explained during our consultation. The bad news is that her insurance situation hasn't improved, and this treatment protocol is even more expensive than the first round. I sat in that sterile office, fluorescent lights humming overhead, and felt something inside me break. I'd just finished paying off the credit cards from her first battle. I'd been living paycheck to paycheck for 3 years, slowly rebuilding my savings. And now we were back to square one. How much are we talking about? I asked, though I already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. With the new immunotherapy drugs, we're looking at approximately $500,000 over 18 months. Vivian grabbed my hand. Claire, I can't ask you to do this again. Maybe I should just stop. I squeezed back. You're not giving up. We'll figure it out. But privately I was drowning. That night I called my financial advisor Tom, who'd been managing what little remained of my investments. Claire, I have to be honest with you, he said gently. You're putting yourself in a position where you might never recover financially. Have you considered that Vivian could qualify for disability benefits or charity care programs? She's my sister, Tom. What would you do? The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. The second round of treatment was more brutal than the first, both medically and financially. I took out a second mortgage on the small condo I'd managed to buy after selling my original home. I borrowed against my life insurance policy. I even started selling possessions, my grandmother's jewelry, my car, anything that could be converted to cash. My coworkers started noticing the changes. I wore the same few outfits rotated weekly, brought peanut butter sandwiches for lunch every day, and never participated in office happy hours or birthday celebrations. Claire, is everything okay? My supervisor, Janet, asked one afternoon. You seem different lately. Just some family stuff. I'm fine, I lied, calculating in my head whether I could skip dinner again to make the grocery budget stretch until Friday. Meanwhile, Vivian was struggling with the treatment but somehow maintaining a more comfortable lifestyle than me. She'd moved into a nicer apartment, claiming she needed a healing environment with better air quality and natural light. She bought organic food, expensive supplements, and even hired a part-time housekeeper. Claire, you look terrible, she observed during one of my visits, glancing up from her tablet where she was online shopping. You should take better care of yourself. I'm fine. How are you feeling? The nausea is awful, but these new vitamins help. They're $60 a bottle, but totally worth it. Something twisted in my stomach as I looked around her apartment. The fresh flowers, the high-end juicer, the designer throw pillows. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen noodles and wearing clothes from thrift stores. Vivian, about the repayment plan we discussed. Oh, Claire, I can barely work part-time right now. Once I'm better, though, definitely. Year 15 of supporting Vivian brought a new kind of exhaustion. She was officially in remission again, working full-time at an upscale salon, and living better than she ever had. Yet somehow the repayment conversations kept getting postponed. I'm building my clientele back up, she'd say. Once I'm really established, I'll start paying you back big time. But I noticed things. The designer handbags, the frequent manicures, the weekend trips with friends. She was spending money freely while I was still eating cereal for dinner and wearing shoes with holes in them. The breaking point came during a family barbecue at our cousin Joel's house. I watched Vivian pull up in a brand new BMW, wearing an outfit that probably cost more than my rent. Nice car, I commented when she approached. Oh, this old thing? I needed reliable transportation for work. The payments are killing me, though. She laughed, but I wasn't amused. Later, I overheard her talking to our cousin Denise by the pool. Girl, Claire is so uptight about money these days. She actually asked me when I'm going to start paying her back. Like, I'm still recovering. I need to focus on my health, not stress about debt. But didn't she pay for all your treatment? Denise asked. Yeah, but that's what big sisters do. Besides, it's not like she's poor or anything. She has a good job. I stood frozen behind the sliding door, her words hitting me like physical blows. 20 years of sacrifice, and this was how she saw it? An obligation I'd willingly taken on, not a crushing burden that had derailed my entire life? That night, I went home and did something I hadn't done in years. I looked at my financial situation with complete honesty. The numbers were devastating. At 48 years old, I had less than $10,000 in savings, was carrying over $300,000 in debt, and had no retirement plan beyond working until I died. Meanwhile, Vivian was thriving professionally and socially, seemingly without a care in the world. I decided it was time for a real conversation. I invited her over for dinner, prepared her favorite meal, and laid out financial documents on my kitchen table like evidence in a court case. "Vivian, we need to talk about the money." She sighed dramatically. "Claire, I thought we agreed not to stress about this stuff." "We never agreed to that. You've been in remission for 3 years, working full-time for 2 years, and you haven't paid me back 1 penny. Meanwhile, I'm drowning." I showed her the statements, the loan documents, the credit card balances. Her face remained remarkably unmoved. "Look, I appreciate everything you did, but you chose to help me. Nobody forced you." The words hung in the air like poison gas. "Toes? Vivian, you were dying. You begged me to help you. And you wanted to be the hero. Don't act like you didn't get anything out of it." I stared at this person who looked like my sister but sounded like a stranger. "What exactly did I get out of bankrupting myself to save your life?" "The satisfaction of being the good sister. The one everyone praises. Poor selfless Claire, sacrificing everything for family." Her voice dripped with resentment I'd never heard before. "I need you to start paying me back. Even just $1,000 a month would help." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Claire, I have my own life to live now. I can't be paying you forever for something that happened years ago." "Something that happened?" "Your cancer treatment that I paid for happened. My financial ruin that I'm still living with is happening right now. Maybe you should have thought about that before you offered to help." After that dinner conversation, something fundamental shifted between us. Vivian stopped pretending to care about repayment and started actively resenting me for bringing it up. Our interactions became increasingly hostile, and I began to see a side of her that I'd either ignored or never noticed. She started making comments about my lifestyle, my appearance, my choices. "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with money, you'd be happier," she'd say when I declined expensive dinner invitations I couldn't afford. The final straw came during a family gathering at Thanksgiving. I was helping in the kitchen when I overheard her talking to our Aunt Patricia in the living room. "I'm worried about Claire," Vivian was saying in her most concerned voice. "She's become obsessed with money lately. Like unhealthily obsessed. She talks about nothing but what people owe her and how much things cost." "Well, honey, didn't she help you out a lot during your treatment?" Aunt Patricia asked. "She did, but that was her choice. And now she's using it to manipulate me, trying to control my life. She's always been a little controlling, but it's gotten so much worse. I think the stress of work might be affecting her mentally." My hands started shaking as I gripped the counter. She was rewriting history, painting me as the villain in a story where I'd sacrificed everything to save her life. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I hired a lawyer. "I want to know my options for recovering money I lent to my sister for medical treatment," I told Attorney Williams during our consultation. He reviewed the documentation I'd brought: receipts, bank statements, payment records spanning 20 years. "This is substantial. Do you have any written agreements?" "No, it was family. I trusted her." "Family disputes are the worst kind," he said sympathetically. "But you have excellent documentation. We might be able to work something out." When I served Vivian with papers demanding repayment of $847,000 in documented medical expenses, her reaction was swift and vicious. She didn't just refuse to pay, she went on the offensive. First came the family pressure. She called every relative we had, spinning a narrative about my mental breakdown and obsession with money. She painted herself as the victim of my greed and instability. "Claire's changed," she told anyone who would listen. "The sister I knew would never do something so cruel. I think she might be having some kind of psychological crisis." Then came the social media campaign. She posted cryptic messages about toxic family members and being attacked when you're most vulnerable. Friends and relatives who didn't know the full story started reaching out to me with concerned messages. But the worst was yet to come. 2 weeks after being served, Vivian did something that knocked the wind out of me. She filed a petition with the court claiming I was mentally incompetent and needed a legal guardian to manage my affairs. I stared at the legal documents in my attorney's office, reading words that made no sense. She's claiming I'm delusional, paranoid, and incapable of making rational financial decisions. She wants to be appointed as my guardian with control over my assets and medical decisions. This is a retaliatory tactic, Attorney Williams explained. She's trying to turn the tables by claiming you're not mentally fit to pursue the lawsuit. Can she do this? Can she actually have me declared incompetent? She can try. But she'll need medical evidence, witness testimony, and convincing proof that you're unable to care for yourself. From what I've seen, you're one of the most financially responsible people I've ever met. You've been supporting another adult for 2 decades while maintaining your own independence. So the fear was real. If Vivian succeeded, she wouldn't just escape paying me back. She'd control everything I had left. The competency hearing was scheduled for a Friday morning in a sterile courtroom that smelled of old wood and broken dreams. I sat at the plaintiff's table wearing my best suit, one of 3 professional outfits I owned, while Vivian sat across the aisle with her attorney, playing the role of concerned sister perfectly. She'd brought witnesses. Our cousin Denise testified that I'd become obsessed with money and talked about debt constantly. A former coworker claimed I'd seemed stressed and paranoid in recent years. Even her hairstylist testified that I'd appeared disheveled and financially unstable during the few times I'd accompanied Vivian to appointments. Your Honor, Vivian's attorney argued, Ms. Claire Watson has made increasingly irrational financial decisions over the past 20 years. She's given away nearly $1 million to someone who never asked for such extensive help, bankrupted herself in the process, and is now pursuing a frivolous lawsuit against a cancer survivor. This pattern of behavior suggests severe psychological distress and inability to manage her own affairs. When it was my turn to testify, I felt 20 years of frustration and betrayal crystallize into clarity. Your Honor, I am not mentally incompetent. I am financially devastated because I chose to save my sister's life rather than let her die from cancer. Every payment I made was documented, necessary, and made with full awareness of the consequences. If caring about family makes me crazy, then I'm guilty as charged. I presented my evidence methodically, bank statements, medical bills, payment records, all organized with the precision that had made me successful in my finance career. The only irrational thing I did was trust that family meant something to the person sitting across this courtroom. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the documentation carefully before making her ruling. Motion denied. Ms. Watson has demonstrated complete mental competency and fiscal responsibility, even to her own detriment. With the competency challenge defeated, my lawsuit could proceed. During discovery, my attorney uncovered financial records that made my blood boil. Over the past 5 years, while claiming she couldn't afford to repay me, Vivian had spent over $200,000 on luxury items, vacations, and non-essential purchases. Designer clothes, expensive spa treatments, a boat she used twice, jewelry that cost more than my car. She'd been living like a millionaire while I ate ramen noodles and wore thrift store clothes. But the most damaging evidence was a series of text messages between Vivian and her best friend Jasmine, recovered from her phone records. Girl, Claire is such a sucker, one message read. She'll never actually make me pay her back. She's too much of a pushover. Another, I told her I'd pay her back eventually, but why should I? She offered to help. That's on her. And the most devastating, if she keeps bothering me about money, I'll just tell everyone she's crazy. Who would believe she gave away almost $1 million if she wasn't nuts? When these messages were presented in court, the atmosphere in the room changed dramatically. Vivian's attorney looked mortified, and several family members who had supported her case quietly slipped out of the courtroom. On the witness stand, Vivian tried to downplay the messages. I was just venting to a friend. I never meant those things. Ms. Watson, my attorney pressed, did you or did you not tell your friend Jasmine that you would falsely claim your sister was mentally incompetent if she continued requesting repayment? That was taken out of context. What context makes it acceptable to threaten false accusations against someone who saved your life? She had no answer. The judge was less diplomatic in her response. Ms. Watson, your behavior in this matter has been unconscionable. You have demonstrated a pattern of deception, manipulation, and bad faith that shocks the conscience of this court. The final judgment was everything I'd hoped for and more. The court ordered Vivian to repay me $847,000 plus interest, attorney fees, and additional damages for emotional distress. But more importantly, the the judge's written opinion was a scathing indictment of her character. The defendant received nearly $1 million from her sister to pay for life-saving medical treatment, then refused to repay a single penny while living a lifestyle of luxury and excess. When confronted with her obligation, she responded by attempting to have her benefactor declared mentally incompetent, a cruel and vindictive abuse of the legal system that borders on the criminal. The judge ordered immediate wage garnishment and asset seizure to begin repayment. Vivian's BMW was repossessed the following week. Her apartment was listed for sale to pay the judgment. Her luxury items were auctioned off. But the social consequences were even more devastating. The court documents became public record, and our extended family finally learned the truth about what had really happened. The same relatives who had questioned my mental state were now calling to apologize. "Claire, I had no idea," Aunt Patricia said through tears during her phone call. "Vivian made it sound like you were harassing her over a small loan. I never knew you'd given up everything to save her life." Our cousin Joel was more direct. "She's dead to me. What she did to you was evil." Even some of Vivian's friends abandoned her when the truth came out. The same people who had supported her competency petition were now posting on social media about being deceived and manipulated. For the first time in 20 years, I felt vindicated. Not just legally but morally. I hadn't been crazy or obsessed or wrong. I had been generous to a fault with someone who saw kindness as weakness and family as something to exploit. Today, 18 months after the judgment, I'm finally rebuilding my life. The monthly payments from Vivian's garnished wages are allowing me to pay down debt and start saving again. More importantly, I've learned to set boundaries and recognize manipulation when I see it. Vivian and I no longer speak. She moved across the country after the judgment, claiming she needed a fresh start away from toxic family. Some relatives still maintain contact with her, but the family dynamics have permanently shifted. Most people now understand who she really is. I've started seeing a therapist to work through 20 years of financial trauma and misplaced guilt. Dr. Foster has helped me understand that I wasn't responsible for Vivian's ingratitude. I was responsible for my own choices, and choosing to save someone's life was never wrong, even when they proved unworthy of the sacrifice. "You didn't create her character," she reminded me during one session. "You revealed it." My financial advisor Tom has helped me create a realistic plan for retirement, acknowledging that I'm starting over at 50 but with the benefit of hard-earned wisdom. "You'll never be as wealthy as you could have been," he told me honestly, "but you'll be comfortable and you'll have your integrity intact. The best part is the peace. I sleep through the night now without anxiety about money or guilt about family obligations. I've learned that true family doesn't exploit, manipulate, or try to destroy you when convenient. I still believe in helping people, but now I help with clear boundaries and written agreements. I volunteer at a cancer support center, helping patients navigate insurance and financial assistance programs. I share my story when appropriate, warning others about the difference between temporary help and enabling permanent entitlement. Last week I got a letter from Vivian. She's apparently engaged and wanted to reconcile before her wedding. The letter was full of vague apologies and suggestions that we should put the past behind us for the sake of family. I threw it away without finishing it. Some bridges once burned by betrayal this deep should stay destroyed. My life is smaller now but infinitely more authentic. I'm not rich but I'm free. And that, I've learned, is worth more than all the money in the world. Part of me feels guilty about how this all went down. Am I crazy or did they really leave me no choice? I could use some outside perspective here.